The mansion looked perfect from the outside, polished gates, marble floors, and glittering chandeliers, but inside, chaos reigned. The billionaire mother sat at the end of a long dining table, her head in her hands, while her triplets darted through the halls like whirlwinds. They screamed, fought over toys, slammed doors, and left a trail of spilled juice and broken glass behind them. The 12th nanny in less than a year had just stormed out, her uniform stained with paint and her patience finally shattered. Each time she hired help, the story ended the same way: bright smiles on the first day, weary sighs by the second week, and a dramatic exit soon after. It wasn't that the children were cruel, they were just untamed, full of energy and fire that no one seemed able to contain. But to their mother, who had built an empire with sharp discipline and sleepless nights, their wildness felt like failure. She could negotiate billion-dollar deals, command boardrooms, and move markets with a single call, yet she couldn't keep one person steady enough to care for her 3 little ones. She watched them now from the shadows of the staircase, their laughter echoing like thunder, and instead of joy, all she felt was despair. The weight of being both provider and parent pressed down on her chest. For the first time, she wondered if no one, no matter how skilled or well-paid, would ever be able to handle the storm her children had become. That night, long after the nanny had left and the children had finally worn themselves into drowsy silence, the billionaire sat on the staircase in the dim glow of a chandelier. Her face was buried in her hands, shoulders trembling with exhaustion. She had everything the world told her should make life easier: money, power, influence, but in that moment, she felt utterly powerless. As she wiped at her eyes, the sound of quiet footsteps broke the silence. It wasn't another nanny or a polished assistant, it was the janitor, pushing his cart with a mop and bucket. He looked almost out of place in the marble hall, with his faded uniform and rough, work-worn hands. He paused when he saw her sitting there, but said nothing at first, only nodded gently before continuing with his work. Then it happened. One of the triplets, restless and awake, wandered down the stairs with a toy clutched in his hand. Instead of running past or throwing a tantrum, he stopped in front of the janitor and tugged lightly at his sleeve. The man knelt down without hesitation, meeting the child at eye level. "What's on your mind, buddy?" he asked softly. The boy blinked, surprised to be spoken to so simply, and for the first time in weeks, he grew still. The mother watched from the staircase, stunned. The stranger had no training, no degree, no promise of reward, yet with a single moment of patience, he had done what 12 professionals could not. In the days that followed, something unexpected began to unfold. The janitor didn't change his duties, he still swept the marble floors, emptied the trash, and polished the long hallways, but he started bringing small pieces of himself into the children's world. On his breaks, he showed them how to fold paper airplanes out of scrap paper from his supply closet. Soon, the air in the mansion filled with little gliders soaring across the room, chased by shrieks of laughter instead of screams. When he mopped the floors, he handed each child a smaller rag and turned cleaning into a game, laughing with them as they slid across the shiny tiles. Instead of scolding when they spilled juice, he showed them how to wipe it up, telling them, "See? You can fix little messes, just like me." To their surprise, it felt fun, like they weren't in trouble but trusted to help. The once intimidating mansion slowly softened. The walls that used to echo with tantrums began to carry the sounds of giggles, playful chatter, and tiny footsteps chasing after the man with the mop. He never raised his voice, never demanded perfection, and yet the children listened to him. Not out of fear, but out of love. From her office, the mother would sometimes pause and listen, her pen frozen above contracts worth millions. For the first time in a long while, she heard something she thought she might never hear again in her home: joy. It was as though this humble janitor had brought magic with him. One evening, after another long day of meetings, the billionaire stepped quietly into the house, bracing herself for the usual chaos. But instead of shrieks and clattering toys, she was met with silence, gentle, peaceful silence. She followed it upstairs and stopped at the doorway of the children's room. There they were, all 3 of her triplets, curled beneath their blankets, fast asleep. Each one held a delicate paper crane in their small hands, as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. The soft rhythm of their breathing filled the room, and for the first time in years, she felt tears sting her eyes, not from exhaustion, but from relief. Behind her, a quiet voice spoke. "They wanted to wait for you, but I told them even heroes need rest." She turned to see the janitor standing in the hall, his cap in his hands, his expression humble and kind. Her throat tightened. "Why do you do this?" she whispered. "They're not your children. You don't owe us anything." The man looked down for a moment before answering, his voice breaking just slightly. "Because once, I was where you are. A single parent. Tired. Alone. Wondering if I was enough. Someone showed up for me back then, when I thought I couldn't go on. I promised myself I'd do the same, whenever I had the chance." The billionaire pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed. In that instant, she realized this wasn't just kindness, this was someone giving back the very thing she had forgotten she needed most, understanding. Tears welled in her eyes as she stood in the hallway, staring at the man who had quietly changed everything. For years she had measured value in contracts, profits, and numbers on a screen, but here was proof that the greatest wealth came from something far simpler. She reached into her purse with trembling hands. "I want to pay you. Name your price. Anything. You've done more for my children than anyone ever has." The janitor shook his head gently, placing his cap back on. "I don't want your money," he said, his voice steady but warm. "Just let them keep their laughter. That's worth more than anything you could give me." Her throat closed as tears finally spilled down her cheeks. She had built an empire, yet here was a man with nothing but calloused hands and a quiet heart teaching her the lesson she'd missed all along. Love cannot be hired, and compassion cannot be bought. That night, the mansion felt different. The chandeliers still glittered, but they no longer mattered. What mattered was the sound of her children's soft laughter echoing in her memory, the weight of the paper cranes they had held in their sleep, and the sight of a humble janitor walking out into the night after giving her something priceless. For the first time in a long time, she believed again, that kindness, freely given, had the power to heal even the most tired hearts. And with that belief came hope.